we got to talk about Trey Lance and this whole Brock Purdy S2 cognitive test stuff, because something doesn't smell right, Levin. Something stinks, and
And
I
it's
don't
not
like
me.
it. Well, thank God we're in separate states. For people that don't know, Matt Barrows wrote a column in The Athletic this week about Brock Purdy and the S2 cognitive test. It's this cognitive test that he took where he scored like in the 95th percentile, which means he was better than 95% of the people that took this test. And the article from Barrows was essentially saying like this test is a good sign for the type of player that you're going to be in the NFL. And maybe Brock Purdy's rise shouldn't have been such a surprise. And in the article, he talks about Trey Lance's score, and he quotes one of the co-founders of the company, Brandon Alley. And the quote was, he couldn't reveal the exact number, but said Lance scored well, and quoted Alley again and said, Lance is not in the Brock Purdy range, but he didn't score poorly, which that surprised me when I read it, because everything we heard about Lance was that he was so great cognitively. Did that surprise you?
Yes and no. It would have surprised me if you told me right off the bat, hey, Purdy scored better than Lance and Lance wasn't in his range. But if you told me first, hey, Purdy was like 95th percentile and Lance didn't score as well, I'd be like, well, yeah, it's kind of hard to beat that.
Right, that's true. But so that article came out, and then there was kind of speculation among some content creators on Twitter about like, hey, wait a minute, what's going on with Trey Lance's score in this article that doesn't seem right? Marco Martinez was pretty skeptical of
Can
how
I just
Lance's.
say, content creators doing the job that used to be done by the reporters. Like that literally is something. It's newsworthy. It's timely. Like it checks all the box. You know, when you go to
Mhm.
journalism school, they teach you, I think it was 7 key values to whether or not you should cover something. And this checks every box. And yet it was the content creators who aren't paid for their full-time job to hunt down the actual facts of this.
So, yes, Marco Martinez reached out to Brandon Alley and had him on his show, Clutch Gene Sports, and asked specifically about Lance. And Marco said, I heard he was in the elite range as well. Here's the clip from that interview with Brandon Alley.
Say that Trey was closer to Brock than the 80th percentile.
That makes sense. So they're both, so the 80th percent, because the article that
Look,
came out,
from a cognitive perspective, I'll be honest with you, San Francisco has 2 really, really good quarterbacks to work with there. I don't know that it's an either or kind of thing. Both of those guys, from a cognitive perspective, again, there's so much that goes into success, right? You got to have the physical skills, the arm talent. You've got to have the psychological makeup. Some of these kids don't like contact. And I'm not saying one over the other there. There's just so many things that go into being successful NFL quarterback that aren't cognitive related. They aren't physical. It's just a mixture of them all. And so both of those quarterbacks scored in the elite range. And I can confirm that Trey scored closer to Brock than he did the bottom 8, that 80th cutoff line.
Okay. Levin, that's a little different than what was portrayed in the article. It's one thing to say Lance scored well, but didn't score with the way Brock scored. And it's another to say Trey Lance was also elite, and he was closer to where Brock was than the cutoff of that 80th percentile.
Right. So, I mean, if you connect the dots there, it means Lance scored somewhere in the high 80s percentile wise,
Right.
which is really, really darn good.
Or low 90s, whatever. It's in that range.
Technically, he could have gotten in the low 90s, but I feel like if he was in the low 90s, he would have said they were in the same range. You know what
Maybe.
I mean? Because if I remember correctly, the actual article mentions 90 as a cutoff that very, very few quarterbacks get above.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so first off, shout out to Marco for getting that. And
yes,
if you want to see the full video, you can go to his page. He's got the entire video on his page. But it's troubling to me because it's one of the writers I think I respected the most. And he dropped the ball on this. There's no other way around it. Either he had an agenda and he purposely edited the article to make Lance look worse, which is very odd and to put it nicely, troubling, because you have to wonder what the motives are there. Why would he have an agenda? Or he just flat out dropped the ball and didn't bother to get it, didn't bother to ask the question of exactly where he was, and didn't get it put into the same frame that Marco got. And if a content creator that, like I said, doesn't do this for full time is doing your job better than you, and you're the beat reporter, that's troubling for yourself.
That's the problem I run into with this. Try to figure out how this could have happened. And the two conclusions I come to is either Matt Barrows was horribly irresponsible or Matt Barrows was horribly incompetent. And Matt Barrows is neither one of those things. He's my favorite 49ers beat writer. He's been really good for a really long time. That's why I'm so surprised at this specifically, because it seems so out of character for him. But I don't know how you don't get that information, because it's like you said, he either didn't ask, which how could you not ask? The whole 49ers offseason is set up as Trey versus Brock. That's what it is. And Matt knows this. So he's been around the team. So how could you not specifically say, how did Trey Lance score? The only thing I could think of is that maybe Brandon Alley wasn't as descriptive with Barrows for whatever reason as he was with Marco. That's the only explanation I could think of.
I mean, it's possible that he didn't think that this would blow up like it did, and after it blew up, he was willing to give more details than he was to Barrows. But yeah, I can understand if Barrows just didn't think to ask and push to get a more finite answer on Lance. That's forgivable. It's a mistake, but it's forgivable. It's if he had an agenda and he's purposely editing things to put Purdy in a better light and Lance in a worse light, that to me is not forgivable. That is straight out having a bias in your reporting, and that is the exact opposite of what you're supposed to have when you're the beat writer. There's a difference between a columnist and a beat writer, and the difference is bias.
I can't think that Matt just said, I'm going to railroad Trey Lance and I'm going to make Brock look good. Like I don't think, the more I think about it, I think that either Brandon Alley just was very evasive, because sometimes they're like super protective with these super secret scores, and we can release Joe Burrow's score because he said it's okay and all this stuff. And by the way, S2 doesn't work with the 49ers. Barrows also said that later on after it kind of blew up a little bit. But I just think it was very, very strange. And I also think that Barrows needs to write another article, and he needs to cite Marco's interview, and he needs to say, look, Trey Lance is right up there, because Marco's interview is not getting nearly as much attention as that article from Barrows. And that ain't right. Cause that's not fair.
I haven't seen any of the beat reporters report on that interview from Marco, and they should be. Every single one of them, Branch, Mayoko, they should all be writing about, the 49ers actually have two great, and telling the story of what's happened in the past week. I don't get why they're not. And I think I know why. I just don't agree with it. They don't want to admit a content creator did their job better than them. Because writing that article, you have to admit that. You might try to phrase it differently, but everybody would be able to pick up on, wow, a content creator did this better than you.
And look at this. Right now, the pinned tweet on Matt Barrows' account is that Brock Purdy article. It's right there. So it's like he's not running away from this. Like he's touting this as like, look at this. This is the story. If you click on my account, the one thing I want you to see is this. And I think it's fair to say he was misrepresenting Trey Lance's performance on that test.
While you got that up, why don't you go to your DMs? Let's see who's been messaging you.
I don't have any DMs.
You don't have any DMs? I know that's a lie because you DM'd me today.
Well, yeah, but I don't have any new ones. I thought you said new ones. Yeah, no, we can't go to my. Are you serious? Let's stop this shit real quick. Okay, that's good. But yeah, no, that really bugs me, because I feel like it's almost a pattern with Trey Lance, right? We didn't know about him lining up incorrectly until we found out about it from Tim Kawakami now to kind of, bolster his point about Trey not being ready, and the criticism of Trey Lance that has come down after 4 freaking starts. I don't know what it is about this kid who seems to be super nice to everybody and super hardworking and all of the stuff that you would want. But it seems like for whatever reason, some people, I don't know, he gets a lot of criticism. I'll just say that.
It's odd. I don't know what the motivations are there. There's certainly some things that come to mind, but I have no idea if that would be true, and I don't want to go there because I have no idea. I haven't met a lot of these beat reporters in person, um, but I do find it troubling the way the reporting has been, and I hope it changes because there's no reason. It's not that they have to sit here and praise Trey Lance. Like you and I both hate that side of it. We both hate the people that are bootlickers, in which we see on Twitter. Everybody knows who they are. It drives me nuts as much as this drives me nuts. Like, just be honest. That's it. You just got to be honest. If you're honest, I'll like you, and I might be nobody, but
Well,
it's
like,
something.
if nothing else, right? Edit your article and say,
Yeah.
Brandon Alley wasn't as specific with me. He later did an interview with Marco Martinez where he said Lance scored in the elite. Like you can change the article, right? It's not set in stone. You got to do something.
They won't.
No, they won't.
There has been one. There is definitely the 49ers media. I don't know if it exists in other fan bases because I don't follow other fan bases, but there is definitely a very big side drawn line in the sand between the beat reporters and the content creators. The beat reporters for the 49ers despise and resent the content creators.
Yes, they do.
And one in particular, Eric Branch, likes to tweet that out and poke at the content creators. He's done that twice this offseason already, just in the offseason, talking about the content creators. Like, why? Why can't it be like, one big team? Everybody's trying to report the news. Like, why does it have to be you guys are up here on some kind of pedestal, which is what it feels like to me. That a lot of the 49ers true media, everybody but Grant, honestly, feel like they're on a pedestal and that they're better and they're above. It's like, that doesn't belong. I don't know if it exists in other fan bases, but the 49ers do have a very unique and, in my opinion, really good content creator base. Like, I've never seen it before, and that includes, you and me.
There's us, the Marco. I mean, there's so many to name. John Chapman, Grant. I mean, Grant's a little different because he also covers the team.
But I mean, there's so many things. Like we have Gold Standard Network. There's 49ers Hive. There's 49ers Web Zone. And there's so many others out there. Like, I feel like it is a unique fan base in that way.
It's a totally separate community. And I agree. There's tension there. And I think because, like you said, there's a little bit of, hey, there's more meat on this bone. It's something I point out constantly. And, nobody likes getting exposed when they not doing what they should be doing. So I just think that's really weird. And I hope we get some sort of update. Again, I like Matt Barrows. I respect Matt Barrows. He is my favorite 49ers beat writer. But something stinks on this one. I'm going to reach out to Matt and see if he'll come on because I'd love to pick his brain and just say, like, dude, what happened? Like, how could you have done this? I bet you he doesn't. But I'll reach out and we'll see what he says.
It would be funny if his explanation is, well, I had something in there, but my editor took it out.
Who's his editor again?
Gee, I wonder. The exact type of person who does this type of thing. The type of person that likes to stir the pot and create a sensational piece. That is not Matt's forte. That's not what he likes to do. He honestly likes to be the exact opposite, I think. I think he is very much a throwback to beat reporters where he's perfectly happy if you don't even notice that byline. You don't even notice his name attached to it. You just got the facts and that's it.